on then, little one, let's go. Go on, walk on. Come on. Hello and welcome to a misty, moist morning in West Wales. And as you can see, we're out in the woodland and the little dog and I are out on our morning walk, and we're going to do a little bit of hedge bothering. In particular, we're collecting stinging nettles, and not to eat, although they are very good to eat this time of the year, obviously when you cook them, otherwise stingy mouth, no, not good. So what we're actually going to do with them is we're going to make a natural dye, and I'm going to continue in my documenting of the different processes that you can use to natural dye. And what we're looking at today, as well as stinging nettles, is using copper sulfate as a mordant to increase the intensity of greens and browns that we can get. So I'm going to turn the camera around and let's get the foraging bag out. I have enough nettles for my purposes, so we're going to head home and start our dyeing experiments. As you can see, it's still like the Battle of the Somme out here. And here we are, back in the slightly echoey conservatory. And through the magic of editing, I have some wool and some cotton that have been scoured and mordanted with alum. The wool was mordanted with alum sulfate and the cotton was mordanted with alum acetate. I do have a full video on mordanting with alum sulfate for the wool. The one for cotton is coming, and I say that every time I sit down and record one of these videos, and one of these days it's going to be true. And they have been dried and they are now soaking in just rainwater to re-wet them, because we are going to use a second mordant, and we're going to use copper sulfate to help get a really good green from those nettles that we collected. So a couple of things we need to talk about with copper sulfate. Copper sulfate is poisonous. Okay, we're using it in a very dilute form, but still safety first. And as I'm very fond of saying, just because something's natural doesn't mean it's not poisonous. And in this case, it is poisonous. However, with a few simple precautions, we can keep ourselves safe, our family safe, and our animals safe. So what we need is a pair of gloves so we don't get any skin contact. It can make you quite ill, copper sulfate, if you get it into the bloodstream. So if you've got any cuts, make sure they're covered. You definitely don't want to swallow it, and you don't want it in your lungs. So no eating, drinking, smoking, vaping, anything that's hand to mouth, so there's no danger you're going to accidentally swallow any. It is an irritant to the eyes, so we want to be using our safety goggles, and it also comes in a powder form. We definitely do not want to be inhaling it, so a dust mask when you are using it in its powder form. Once it's diluted, you don't have that risk that the dust is going to get into your lungs. But we are going to heat it, so you definitely don't want to start breathing those fumes in. So well ventilated room, potentially outside would be the best option. And then just to stop any fumes getting into the lungs, a dust mask should work fine. If you were doing this on an industrial scale, then yes, a respirator, but we're not. We're doing it on quite a small scale. And as I say, it's very dilute. Okay, so we're going to keep ourselves nice and safe. And the next thing we need to do is gather our supplies. So copper sulfate comes in a blue powder, and I just keep it in this jar in a cupboard where the dog can't get to it. I mean, not that she's very good at getting into cupboards, but just belt and braces, so screw top, she can't get in there. And you can see I haven't got a huge amount left. It lasts a really long time. Then also we are going to need some household vinegar, just regular white vinegar, and something to measure with. And all my equipment that I use for dyeing, I only use it for dyeing. Again, I don't want to accidentally poison anyone I know or myself. So next we are going to make up the solution, and I have a jam jar that is going to go into the recycling once I've used it for this purpose. So again, I'm not going to reuse this jam jar. I'm going to make up the solution. It's going to be washed out and it's then going into the recycling. So I haven't got that danger of doing the cross-contamination. And in here we're going to put water from the kettle, sort of up to about there. And then we need 2% to the weight of wool of our copper sulfate. And you always go by the weight of whatever it is that you're dyeing. So whether it's fibre or fabric, whatever it is, you weigh it, and it's always easier to work in 100 grams because you can do nice easy sums then. So we've got 100 grams of fibre, and in my case yarn with a little bit of fabric, and that all comes to 100 grams. Then I'm going to use 2%. So if I've got 100 grams, then I need 2 grams of copper sulfate. You could of course weigh it, and if you've got very, very accurate scales, then yeah, absolutely. However, for years and years and years, I've been using this quarter of a teaspoon, so 2/4 of teaspoons, and it's worked fine. Okay, right, so let's turn the camera around and have a little look at the process. So I have my big pot of rainwater, which is going to be my mordant bath. I have my copper sulfate. I have a jar to mix it up in, and I've just boiled the kettle. So we're going to fill this to about there with water from the kettle. We're going to add our crystals to the water, not the other way round. I'm going to make sure I've got all my safety kit on, and then we're going to just dissolve our 2/4 teaspoons of the copper sulfate in the water. Add it to this, then we're going to add some white vinegar. For 100 grams, you need 40 millilitres of vinegar. Next, I'm adding everything that I want to mordant, and this is 100 grams in total, and then that is going to go onto my heat source for about an hour at simmering point, so you don't boil it. So the big pot of mordant is now on the heat source, and it's going to be there for about an hour. So we're going to bring it up to simmering point, hold it for an hour, turn it off, let it cool naturally. Then we're ready to add it to the dye bath. And of course, by the magic of editing, I have already made up the dye bath. Now, before we move on to the dye bath, I just want to say I'd really like you to do your own research on the copper sulfate. Only you know whether it's something you want to use. I'm quite comfortable using it myself, but please do your own research, make your own decision. Okay, so the nettles. Generally, my rule of thumb is twice as much dye material to the weight of whatever you're dyeing. And I'm certainly going to try that with the nettles. I haven't actually dyed with nettles for quite a long time. Surprisingly, we don't have an awful lot of nettles in this area, as when I went looking for nettles to make nettle fibre from, I discovered. And a lot of that is to do with where nettles like to grow. They like somewhere where there's been a bit of human habitation, where there's been a bit of kind of nitrogen in the soil. We do not have a lot of nitrogen in these soils. We have heavy rainfall and a free draining soil, and the nitrogen just washes out of the soil. But obviously, as you saw, I did actually find some. So I put them into rainwater. They've been on the heat at simmering point for an hour. They have now cooled down. And the next stage is to actually remove all the kind of the greenery and things from the cooled dye bath. Now, quite often I tell you to let your dye bath sit for 24, 48 hours. Don't do that with nettles. It smells quite bad. It really doesn't take very long before there's a bit of a composty sort of smell coming off your nettles. 12 hours, you're probably okay. So overnight, you're probably fine. But any more than that, yeah, starts to get a little bit stinky, and probably just don't do that. it doesn't really affect the colour. Well, I don't think it affects the colour, but yeah, just for kind of everybody else in your household, you probably don't want your whole house smelling of composting nettles. Okay, so I'm going to go off and do other things, let that kind of, again, not boil, just simmer, and we'll come back at the point where we're ready to put the wool into the dye bath. So here we are at the next stage, and this has all been taken out and is now at a temperature where it's not going to felt. This is our dye solution with all the leaves taken out, and you see it's good and dark. And then this is our solution with the copper sulfate in it. But we are not going to throw that away. I am going to use that for a cold mordant. So I'm going to get another 100 grams of fibre that has been pre-mordanted with alum. I'm going to pop it in there. It's not 100% cool yet, but once it's cool, and leave it for 3 days, and that will be a cold mordant. And you should be able to get 2, maybe 3 batches of mordanting out of this solution before it'll just be too weak to use. Right, I'm going to put a pair of gloves on and we'll do the next stage. So here is our piece of cotton. That's just going to go straight in there. I'm only going to dye the yarn, and the reason for that is I actually only collected 100 grams worth of the nettles, so I always use the 2-to-1 ratio, and so I'm going to just use 50 grams, and I know this is 50 grams. It is completely tangled up in the comb top, but there we go. Right, so in we go, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a top up with some rainwater, just so that it's got enough space to move around. I mean, it will dilute it a little bit, but I think I'm going to have to. I probably should have picked more nettles, shouldn't I? So that's going to go onto the heat, simmering point for an hour. Then I'm going to let it cool and we'll see what colour we've got. So this, which has been mordanted, going to give it a rinse, dispose of the rinsing water down the loo, and then I can dry that, label it, and I know it's already mordanted the next time I want to do a batch of something with a copper mordant. And once, hang on, there you go, once that is cool, I'm going to put in the next lot of fibre. And there is our pot of yarn that has been on the heat for an hour. It's just come outside to cool down, and we will see in a little bit how much of that colour is actually going to stay there. Well, it's another wild and windy day in West Wales, but it's not raining and the sky is blue. I have finished off that dyeing and it has dried, and when we get home I will show you what it looks like. Now, I have got the windshield on my microphone, so I'm hoping you're going to be able to hear me without being deafened by the wind. So as you can see, I didn't poison myself. We are now, 2 days later, and everybody is fine. And that wool that has been in the cold mordant is ready for a dyeing experiment. So I'm out and about and I'm going to collect some dye materials. That will be another video. I have, of course, finished the nettle dyeing. Sorry, it's really windy here. I have got a windshield on the microphone, so I hope this is going to be okay. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Yes, so I have finished that dye experiment. It's all dried and I will drop that in at the end of this video. In the meantime, we are on the hunt for butterbur. And butterbur is pretty much evergreen around here. I don't think it's evergreen everywhere. And it's called butterbur because people used to wrap pats of butter in it. A little unwise maybe, because a little bit toxic, so kind of don't eat it. Anyway, I'm going to collect some of that and I will see you back at the house, because that dyeing experiment will be another video. Anyway, right, I'm off to find this butterbur I was going to say elusive. It's not elusive. It grows everywhere and it's all down the side of the footpath. So I'm quite happy to collect it. Anyway, see you in a moment. So we're back in the Echoey Conservatory and I have my fibre down there to show you. And I just wanted to give you a recommendation of a book, and it's down here, Wild Colour by Jenny Dean, excellent on natural dyeing. Let you also know that I have a free PDF guide to mordanting wool with alum, both hot mordanting and cold mordanting. It doesn't go into copper and iron things, but I do have videos on, well, now this is the video on copper. I do also have one on iron, and I will link the full playlist up there, or maybe it's up there. Anyway, somewhere it'll come on to the screen, and that will be the full playlist for all the natural dyeing videos I've got. Right, just a couple more things to say. Okay, so copper sulfate, when you're disposing of it, although it's very dilute, you do need to be a little bit careful. If you have a septic tank, it is recommended that you don't use it at all. So put it down the loo. You want it to go into the main sewage system. Don't want to put it on your garden. I mean, I've heard people say you can put it on your garden. I personally wouldn't. And you also don't want it to be anywhere near a waterway because it's very dangerous for aquatic life. So hopefully I haven't completely put you off. As I said, do your own research, make your own decision whether it's something that you want to use. As I said, I've used it for years. I've never had a problem, but I am uber cautious when I'm using it. And I think, you know, be very careful. Anyway, right, let's turn the camera around and have a look at these results. And there we have a khaki green. And you do get different colours depending on the time of year. And obviously putting that copper in just made it a little bit greener. So I will say goodbye and I will see you in the next video.